Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Christ consciousness. Well, I want to talk about Bob Lazar, who just came up on one of my comment areas on YouTube. And this is a very interesting case. And he has a movie about him, I think, running on Netflix, which I will review in another lecture. I have not seen it yet, but I've been following him for years. I mean, he's been on all the major talk shows for 20, 30 years now. Art Bell, he's been on most of the other alternative type shows out there. So he's pretty well known, and I kind of know his story as much as I pieced together and watched him. I've listened to many interviews. He's been on Joe Rogan recently. Like any good person or quote, and I hate to use that term, but any con man or anybody, and I'm not saying he is, but people who are sincere and can bring that across. Now, one of the biggest con men there is David Berkowitz, the son of Sam Killer, who everybody loves. Oh, he's repentant. He's sorry. He's reading the Bible. He's a Christian now. I don't want to get out of prison. I was a bad guy. And people love this. And believe me, if he was given parole tomorrow, he wouldn't stay in prison. But he's come across as sincere, appears to be sorry for what he did, but, that's how all psychopaths are. Sociopaths, psychopaths are very convincing. People think that they're just kind of crazy maniacs that you would never trust. Now, if you are, you're never going to be able to victimize people unless you sneak up on them and attack them in their homes, etc. Most of these people haven't done this. So, most of these sensational cases, which kind of mean nothing, these serial killers. I mean, I'm always amused by the fact that, from what I understand, 500 to 1,000 Bloods and Crips are found every year in the Los Angeles area murdered. These Mexican street gangs are killing thousands of people a year. Yeah, we got to get this guy. He's a terrible murderer like Manson who never killed anybody. So the whole idea is that, you are distracted again, trying to warn people of the red herrings out there so that they understand that while you're concentrating on worthless people of no value, all the other stuff is happening behind your head, on your back. So, well, let's get into Bob Lazar here now. Bob Lazar, as I said, I've listened to all of his information. From what I can piece together from what I know of alien technologies, he is stating how particularly their anti-gravity systems work. Now, we have, as a military, anti-gravity technology of today. I personally witnessed it 500 feet away. Lots of other people have seen it in these B-2 stealth bombers, planes, etc. have seen this. I've seen it personally. And I've had a witness with me at the time. And it's mind-screwing that you would see and you can't call it hovering, because hovering is something that is considered like a helicopter hovers. No, it was standing, anti-gravity standing in it. No noise, no nothing. And why did this plane do it? Well, one of the problems is, which they haven't figured out, or part of their reverse engineering, is that it doesn't handle thunderstorm. A huge thunderstorm was happening down in the desert where I lived in the Palm Springs area, and this plane had to come down out of there. And why he went all the way down to the ground, I don't know. Was in an open lot in Banning, California. Saw it. And I'm glad I had a witness with it, which was rare. So, it exists. Where did it come from? How much? Well, our technology that we have today, that the public has, is 100 years behind what the real technology is. So, and just reaffirms everything. One of the interesting things to think about, if we have anti-gravity, what else do we have? That's just, it's really frightening. So it means that every gossip you've heard, every possible conspiracy scenario could be right. We could time travel. We could do so many other things. Can we? Well, we have anti-gravity. And you got to remember that thousands of people have to handle that anti-gravity technology, so thousands of people know it, but I haven't seen a single person come forward other than people like me to say they've seen it. So we know we have this technology. Now, where did it come from? Well, this is the big question. Now, I do believe Bob Lazar's story. It makes sense that we have these crafts, people would be working on it, and maybe they even get kind of odd guys like Bob Lazar, who they can get rid of, who has problems in his background. After all, Bob Lazar was a pimp. He ran a whorehouse. I guess a legal whorehouse, but he ran into problems. But he was running as a pimp where it's legal in northern Nevada. Well, that's kind of strange, isn't it? They have he's either lying about his records or he is telling the truth, stating that they've been doctored. They've removed his records from MIT. Boy, that would be hard, wouldn't it? Here's a quarter, kid. Take it out of the system. I'm the CIA. Yes, sir. So you got to remember that all these colleges, universities, they're all funded by corporations and the government. Mostly the government. Matter of fact, all of the medical breakthroughs we've had, the few that there are, were all funded in the last 10 years by the U.S. government, me and you. They give them to pharmaceuticals that then charge us thousands for their junk. So, I mean, this is the kind of situations we run into. Now, Bob Lazar has been investigated by a particular reporter out of Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm trying to remember his name now. I'm terrible on these things. Knife, something like that. I can't remember his name, but he's been working with him for years. And Las Vegas is a strange area, and there's the Bigelow guy there who's involved with the government, the CIA, and everything else, who's poured money into this, and who's basically, as far as I allege, a CIA operative. He was involved in the forming of the Art Bell Show, along with John Alexander and a whole bunch of other people. If you want to know everything about the Art Bell Show, read the book Seer, S-E-E-R, written by a remote viewer who was involved in that entire process, built the Art Bell Show up, worked for it, and was all part of it along with all the other people. It tells you the full story there and how this is a complete CIA operation. So Art Bell never went crazy. He really didn't know anything. Art Bell, he was pushed out there at a time when there was a height of this kind of interest. But knew absolutely nothing about anything he talked about. And always said, well, this is just entertainment, people. But the point is, it's really a problem when you have no background because you can't ask questions. And I was on the Art Bell Show for, 5 hours, pre his big launch date. This was on a Friday night. So, so I know what's going on. And Art Bell doesn't talk to you beforehand. I sent him a little flyer, and he said, "Can you be on my show?" This was before he was a big shot. And I said, yes. And that was the way that went. But without getting it, but he also has claimed to go to MIT, yet he can't name any professors. Now, I think we have to understand why people like him can operate. First of all, if he is telling the truth, why isn't he arrested? Why isn't he murdered? A lot of people are, by the way. A lot of people are murdered. Their planes mysteriously crash. They get into car accidents. Even apparently seem to die of diseases and cancer ahead of other things. So why is he allowed to do this if he's telling the truth? Well, this has always been the big question, and I think I have an answer to this to a degree as well. Now, first of all, a lot of this information, just as there are people as a reporter, Annie Jacobson, who's written all these kind of conspiracy books about the CIA, Project Paperclip with the Nazis, she talks to regular governmental people, CIA, FBI, and they all talk to her. Why? Now, a lot of these people also write books, just as military people, generals, special forces people, and regular Joes. They're all writing books. Why? If they're giving out information they don't want you to know. Well, all of these books do have to be rubber stamped as actually cleaned by these agencies. You have to get the book cleared by whomever that does that. CIA, whatever. They have to clear your book if you're a previous employee or worked with them. So they go through the book and they tell you what to take out, what you can leave in, etc. Well, why allow anything? Well, they want you to know what's going on. They want fear in you. They want you to know what's happening in their agencies. It's publicity. And every time a movie comes out that features somebody like Top Gun, I mean, the recruitment offices are flooded with people. To a large extent, these things are advertising for them. They also want to be heard. They don't want to be the spook in the closet. They want to be the spook that everybody knows about, but not the details. So this is very important if you understand how disinformation is put out there as well. Now, disinformation goes by the fact that they're going to let certain people talk who they can say, oh yeah, you know what Bob Lazar said? You understand that he has reversed engineering, that we have anti-gravity? Oh, the pimp, the liar who said he went to MIT when he can't name a single professor there?
Oh, well maybe he's not telling the truth, Bill. Maybe he is a fraud.
Well, this is what they want. What they want is to get the information out there and have it not verified, but interesting and questionable. Well, what have you just done there? You've got information out, but you haven't rubber stamped it or said it's true. That's how disinformation works when they want to get stuff out to the public. I believe a lot of people are put into this situation. I think a lot of psychics and alternative practitioners, and I'm going to talk about that in another lecture, like Ruth Drown, was said, you're going to be tested and you're going to fail because we don't want you curing people. This discredits you. So everybody says, well, they tested her, and I've said it as well, but she failed horribly, apparently. So you have to look up these things and find out the details, because as they keep being rewritten, as the speaking the words in the ear of someone, and you go around the room, it comes out at the other end that it's something different, because everybody is interpreting or heard something different. So Bob Lazar, apparently, what he says makes sense. From what I understand of him talking about the anti-gravity devices and how it worked within these ships is what I've heard from other sources as well, as that's how these anti-gravity devices work, and they've been able to reverse engineering. What he talks about how to do things in little cells where people are isolated between a couple of people. Well, this is very typical protocol of how you work on secret projects. You work in mini cells. Cells you only know a certain amount. So they get rid of you and you do whatever you want with that, or they feed you misinformation to see if you're telling the public, and they can find and track it back to you directly. Or you only know a little bit, so when you give it out, just like Bob Lazar, he only knows kind of a little bit, and you track it back or give that information out. So now, this reporter from Las Vegas apparently met with him, talked with him, and they went down, I believe it was Los Alamos, where he claims that he worked for a while in New Mexico. Now, I have a few questions there, and the fact is, supposedly they went into the business there, and if you didn't work there any longer, how could he get in? But apparently they waved him in. He went into there, knew every nook and cranny in that particular institute, proving that he worked there. Worked there? Well, that bothers me, because it's like a stain. Well, we're going to let him in to prove it to you, a reporter, that there's some validity to this. But remember, he was a pimp. And there were other things, apparently, that he got into and had different problems. He was a car nut and other things. Kind of an odd guy when you listen to him. The recent interview I saw him on was with Joe Rogan, and he was claiming headaches and health problems, and there's so much stress. He also made sure he also was claiming all sorts of stress problems. He had a headache. He felt terrible. The guy who made the movie of him was there with him on Joe Rogan, and claimed that he's having these terrible migraines or whatever it was because of this work. But he also stressed the fact that he's never taken a dime for what he's doing to give himself credibility. That anytime he's paid for anything, that he donates it to particular scientific funds in high schools and colleges, etc. And in general, he will not allow people to pay for him to keep his credibility. Certainly that is an important factor, because if you're making lots of money from this, the tails get bigger and bigger. This happened to the person and the movie. What do I walk with the whites or whatever it is? This guy wrote books for his children to make lots of money, and what turned from one volume turned into 5 or 6 volumes of just pure garbage, written for basically children, because his wife rewrote all the manuscripts and took out all the bad stuff, as she put it, curse words and other things, apparently, if there was any sex in there. So the whole idea is it's all pretty strange. So you can see how things are manufactured and how something is taken which may have a grain of truth in it and turned into some very strange and almost comical comic book type writings, which is what happened with those books in general. So here we go with Bob Lazar, and now he cannot name anybody at MIT. He named a professor, which has been linked to Pierce College, a junior college outside of Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley, known for its agriculture college, known for where you learn farming and techniques such as that. That's what that, because the San Fernando Valley originally was a giant farm. Now it's nothing but housing. So he named a professor that went to that school, which is a junior college of little or no note, as most junior colleges are. Apparently it's a good one, but the bottom line, it's a junior college, and you just go there. You just pay, take your courses, and that's it. There's really no clarification or tests you have to take to get in or stuff like that to any great extent. You just go there. Not to say there's bad training there. I think junior colleges can be quite excellent places to learn outside of a lot of the dogma you get at four-year universities. But this is a community college. So he named a teacher that went there, and that's what they find. He didn't name anybody that he went to MIT with. And when he's asked these questions, he kind of ponders them, like he's trying to recall names. I think he's recalling what was told him. He claims he went to MIT, and I don't know if that's important or not, to be quite honest with you. But we're trying to verify his education, and yet he can't name anybody or any professors there or anything else, and maybe he has a bad memory. I don't know. I'm having trouble recalling my college professors right now. I can't really remember their names. Well, I can see their faces, but I don't really remember them. Maybe he can't remember them. And there's no records of him there. So this was claimed to have been cleaned out by the CIA, which certainly wouldn't be difficult, as I've mentioned. So the whole idea is that, so that's another question. But the fact that he can walk into a building and is able to know everything and go around there is something that is pretty impressive. But why is he able to do that years after supposedly quitting there? So he has this kind of spotty record. He talks about seeing crafts and reverse engineering them and everything else and how they worked on it. And, as much as we can tell, because how do you describe foreign or is it extraterrestrial technologies? Now, one of the problems that I've ran into with extraterrestrial knowledge of advanced technology is there's no way to explain that. Let's say it's 1812. Let's go back to them, Napoleon times. Use a canon. Well, I'm going to tell you, Napoleon, what a computer is. And I'm going to tell you how it's made with integrated circuits, and you weld this together. And what? Are you insane, man? What are you talking about? So the whole idea is you can't understand it. You have no concept of it whatsoever. And I've seen some plans or descriptions from extraterrestrials, and you can't do anything. It's a very rough draft of what you're trying to put together. It has absolutely nothing that you can understand from people who are so advanced and using such advanced technologies. Certainly not the electromagnetic nonsense spectrum. Can't go faster than the speed of light. My feet hurt. I'm Einstein. So the whole idea is that all of these things don't make any sense to advanced people, and pretty much every extraterrestrial information laughs at the fact of not going at the speed of light, faster than the speed of light, I should say. The problem is you are traveling at immense speeds as well, and overshooting your target and other things certainly would be a problem. So you're going to have to use these things in a very disciplined, perfect way. But that goes into other things. But the bottom line is that you have no idea what they're talking about. And they don't use wires. They don't use the things that we talk about. They use basically photons, and they're moving subtle energies. And that's how everything is made, built, and used, which nobody has any idea what's about.
It ain't physical? Ugh.
So the whole idea is that, no, it's energetic.
Energetic? What do you mean? Is that like doing push-ups?
So the whole idea is that these are all the things that are out there. So the fact is that what he talks about, and of course really doesn't have any answers of how it was made. He looked at it, they tried to reverse engineer it, and as far as he was concerned, this was achieved. And they were able to take these crafts and fly them and get them to operate. Another thing I find difficult to believe of how this was done, that they were able to fly and control them to a certain degree. But, you know, if you've got all this money and you have everybody working on this and you have these captured but working crafts, well, the bottom line is that you would think you would be able to get them to kind of work, and then you could reverse engineering them and make some anti-gravity yourself. But we also have to understand, is this technology perfect? Well, you know, one thing that people like to say is that there's nothing you could ever do against extraterrestrials. They're so far advanced from us. Really? Is that why we have their bodies in cooler trucks and stored that have died? Is that why we have numerous ships of theirs? Well, nothing can affect them. They don't have any mechanical breakdowns. They never, ever fail. Nothing ever affects them. They're kind of like Super Jesus in a spaceship. So it's just nonsense. Of course, extraterrestrials of all types can be fought against with the weapons we have, and the weapons they're not talking to you about, many of them Tesla-based. And of course, we're talking about particle beams and all sorts of other things that are out there. So to think that there is no defense against them is very illogical on every aspect. Now, needless to say, they are superior, and I wouldn't necessarily want to get into a shooting war with them. But the point is that their bodies are here, their crafts are here, they ain't perfect, and they can be fought against if the need is great and has to be happening. Since I have little regard for the human race, I don't really care, but the bottom line is that this is foolish to think that we don't have that. And if you think those tinker toy weapons we have now and the goofball little ships that take 7 months to get to Mars are what our technology is, you are delusional. You're living in a corrupted dream, the urban fantasy that I always talk about, because we are living in an urban legend reality. It's just a legend. It doesn't mean anything. Nothing of it is real. And of course, that's where we live in. So Bob Lazar does apparently, I am leaning towards the fact, and it makes sense that we have tens of thousands of people who are working in, millions of people basically, working in secret projects. 90% of the population is involved with criminals that is keeping secrets. They work with all the criminals, your neighbors, your politicians. They're all involved. You never hear about this. All the corruption going on and everything else. These are all secrets, and they're kept forever. So why wouldn't this be true? So the point is that certainly, if you don't believe they're extraterrestrials, well, you're just kind of being silly. There's overwhelming evidence of their visitations, their contacts, etc., from numerous races. There's been direct, indirect, and all sorts of things. The complicated factors, how are they interacting with the governments and people in general? And this, of course, is kept very secret. But lots of people have been contacted, gone on ships, and can we believe them or not believe them? Well, here we go about what is real and what is not real. What is a lie? What is someone's figment of their imagination? Did it really happen, or was it a dream and they think it's real? And they're very honest about believing it as truth, but it just isn't. So it's not a direct lie, but you can't really trust anybody. You can't believe anybody's opinion, whether they're a general or a doctor or a lawyer. These are some of the most corrupt people on the planet. If they're corrupt everywhere else, why would they give you good information? So we can't believe any of it. Now, this guy seems, and again, would this guy be the perfect corporate executive? Well, I live and die for the corp. I protect myself. I want me little house. I want me little car. I want me little kids. So I'm certainly not going to go against the corp, am I? Well, that's right. So we expect somebody to come out that's a suit and tie guy, has 2 kids, a pony, and a dog, and a white picket fence, and he's going to come out and divulge everything and risk his life. Because that's what you're doing. Well, I think we have to understand that the kind of people that are going to come out and talk about stuff are going to be the weirdos. They're going to be the Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquinos, this fantasist with his Eddie Munster haircut, his belief in the good Satan, and all the things that go with that. That's who you're going to come out and talk stuff. Now, is it real or is it Memorex? Well, that's another question entirely. But I tell you, if anybody's going to divulge things, it's not going to be the corporate general, the corporate scientist, because their whole life is based on them shutting up and doing what they're told. They also have very strong legal contracts as well. Legal contracts that they're not allowed to do this, which have horrible penalties. These are secrecy laws, and they can grab you instantly, and you're gone, and your family and anybody else. So, I mean, there's some meat to back up these your lifestyle choices. So it's unlikely you're going to come out and do that if you have a family or anything connected with it, or just like your lifestyle. There has been certain researchers and so forth that have went against the belief systems of that, and they have been thrown out of their institutions and have literally ended up on the street. This is not a fantasy. So who is it going to be? It's going to be the guy who's a little weird. The guy who didn't really want to be in the corporate scientific world, found a way that he could be a pimp legally, or run. I don't know if that's a terrible term. So he wanted to run a little brothel. I don't see anything wrong with that. Well, what's wrong with that? I don't believe in anti-prostitution laws anyway. It's like everything else. It should be taxed and regulated, and make sure that people get that are employees, they get their Social Security, they have benefits. Everything should go. It should be a regular business. But I see nothing wrong with it. So he's smart. Well, I would like to have seen his lunch hours at the ranch. So the whole idea is that there are benefits with that. It's certainly something that everybody is involved with, wants to be involved with. So I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, if you're a criminal pimp on the street who's abusing people and everything else, that's not what legal prostitution is in general, but anybody can abuse anything. So the point is, apparently this is true. There's legal cases registered in the court systems of him being arrested for this, et cetera, and other things. And of course, people that met him say he was odd. I don't know if being into cars is being odd. He was a car file, building engines, other things, which he's known for. So there's several things, and he's always had a little bit of media on him. What would it? So the guy who's working for the corporation, talking, getting his check for his research projects, which, by the way, a whole bunch of other people are going to have to live on as well. So it's not just you. That's the guy who's going to come out with stuff. Secondly, they don't want the credibility of someone like that talking about it. They want the weirdo talking about it so they can discredit him. Oh, that guy who owned a whorehouse. You going to believe him, mister? So this is the kind of things you run into. So in general, I do believe Lazar's story, that he reversed engineers things, he went to Area 51 and other things, and that this is, and he's kind of the public rat, the guy they can say the whore master, to give out some of this information that the public want. Now, do you think it would be difficult to silence him? Do you think it would be difficult to kill him? Do you think it would be difficult to harass him? Well, apparently not, and Lazar himself doesn't want people to contact him. He doesn't want money. He doesn't want anything. He said this on the Joe Rogan show. Don't contact me. I have nothing to say to individuals, because I'm sure he gets a huge amount of contact there. So he wants to state his story, and that's it. I'm sure there's many others like him, but he's going to rebuke them. So the bottom line is by rebuking people, he again serves the purpose that these intelligence agencies want him to do. He's not collecting more data. He's not saying, oh, this guy confirms what I say. Again, that's proof they don't want. One thing they don't want is a lot of people backing you up. So what they do is intimidate people around you, and they don't necessarily want other people to know what's happening to you. I've seen this in my own life. They don't want anybody coming forward and say, gee, I saw that guy being harassed. No, they don't want that. And he doesn't want Bob Lazar, they don't want him bringing out, well, scientist Smith, who really does have MIT credentials, agrees with me and worked there as well. They don't want that. They want to be able to discredit you, and that's how disinformation works. This is all part of the process, and I hope everybody understands these pieces I'm assembling for you in all these different lectures. So I hope you get the meaning of this. Lots more to come.